Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Fresh Start Photo. Today I'm going to be bringing you a little tutorial on using Lightroom CC to edit your photos. Sometimes we find ourselves doing a photo shoot in a perfectly scenic location, but weather just really doesn't cooperate with you. If you're like me, you're from Michigan, and you're really familiar with this issue. So today we'll be going through a few photos I took at a wedding recently, where at some points it was extremely sunny and just a few seconds later it was pure cloud coverage. And let's talk about how you can take full advantage to create some stunning images in Lightroom that really pop out the viewer. So as you can see from the photos in front of you, the one on the left, that's the before photo. It's dull, it's dark in the middle, and it leaves you wanting more. And it's blown out, it's not really a very pleasing photo to look at. The photo on the right, that's your after photo. Pops at you, it really jumps out, it's vibrant, and it really makes you kind of feel that wedding vibe, that warmth, that romance you really want out of this wedding photo. So that's kind of what we went through today, and let's get started. So the first thing that a lot of people tend to do quite often is, the first thing you want to jump to is presets. So always go into presets, and it doesn't really look so well. We'll look at a couple presets here real quick, that come with Lightroom. They just don't really do the trick, There's always something wrong with it. It's either really matte, really dark, or just something really pops out. And honestly, when you're using presets and filters, a lot of times people can really tell. Especially if you do it often or use the same ones, people can honestly tell. And there's a lot of situations where it really doesn't work out, especially when you have a photo like this where it was really, really sunny outside. It was a really warm day, it was a really sunny day, but there was just a lot of cloud coverage. Here you can tell, the sun was right on their backs, but it was just really, really harsh, and it's just really hard to work with. You want to get in the habit of using something like Lightroom to actually manually fix the photo and do all the edits the right way, and not always using presets. Plus, having the knowledge but to take care of something like this is always a lot of help. So let's get started, and this will be really quick. So the first thing you want to do is you want to drag these highlights down a little bit. So make this photo, you'll notice in the clouds, you can see one of the clouds pop out, and it'll bring a little bit of the overblown dress out. So let's bring the highlights down a bit. Now, he's wearing a black suit. Light is just really, the sun really gets absorbed by the black suit. So the next step we want to do is we want to bring out the shadows up a little bit. Now, as you can see, if you bring it too much, then there's a lot of contrast. You just kind of play around with the shadows bar and see what it does. But we'll bring it up a little ways so we can see it's pretty good. Now, a lot of people mess with the tone curve for things like this. Tone curve is really advanced, and we're just going to focus on some of the things that are really easy to memorize and easy to do. So we're not going to mess with the tone curve today. But something that is my favorite way to go about processing my pictures is the color grading. I usually found that down in the middle as well. Now, if you don't use the Lightroom desktop version that I'm currently using, you also always have the regular Lightroom CC, which if you look over in here, it has some of the same settings, very similar. So whether you're in Lightroom Classic or Lightroom CC, you still have this color bar right here, which is where you can do a lot of the fixing, which I'll show you. So back over to Lightroom. On the desktop here, we're already making progress. The first thing you're going to want to do is the orange tones, because orange 9 times out of 10 is really where the skin tone is. So especially for this couple here, orange is really where it's at now. You want to brighten up your skin tone a little bit, you want to make them pop a little bit. You're just going to go to the luminance bar on the orange and just increase it. As you can see, the more you increase it, the whiter they get. And well, you don't want to do that. That obviously looks terrible. So you increase it a little bit. And the more you increase it, you can always consider adding a little bit of saturation, because the more you increase it, the brighter it is, the whiter it is, which can take away from your skin tone. So in this case, just add a tiny bit of saturation to bring a little bit of that skin tone back. Now for the groom here, as you can see, he's got a very red face. He actually had sunburn from being fishing out a few days before the wedding. Again, same thing, fixing this. So he's a little bit red, it's a little bit dark. It just doesn't really pop very much. So go to the red colors and increase the luminance a little bit. As you can see, it brings it right up. You'll also notice right on here on the flowers, it changes the flowers a little bit too, which will help them pop out. So we're going to take this red up a little bit, not maybe about that much, and that makes his face pop out a little bit more and a little bit better. Let's increase the saturation just a hair or two. Perfect. Now blues can be very tricky because you have the sky, but the biggest thing with blues also, it affects the dress. It almost always affects the dress. Anytime you have something white is where the blues really come in. Now since it's such a bright photo, we're not really too focused on having the blue in the sky, so we can actually go ahead and remove some of this blue saturation. Now if you remove it all the way, you'll notice how black and white this couple becomes. You don't want it to be completely like that. Bring it all the way up, because you notice the blue really comes out. So we just want to reduce the saturation a little bit here, and then bring the luminance up. So this is how we're going to bring the white up in the dress. Alright, now we don't want to do too much because then it really blows out the sky. So we're just going to do, about that much, which will do the trick. And if you need to do more, you can actually lower highlights still a little bit, but bring up the luminance in blue. That way you're bringing her dress out a little bit more, and you're still keeping the sky and the clouds, which is always really helpful. Now, it was, again, it was a really sunny day, really bright day, but some of these colors are a little bit off. You look at this photo and you see the green in the background and the foreground, and at first you might think, well, that looks really accurate, but two things you really have to remember. The first thing is that this is about your vision and how you want the photo to feel. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the camera can only see so much, and the colors that it's bringing in, especially on these raw files, is not completely accurate. So we can actually mess with these backgrounds a little more, change the trees, and make this photo just really pop out a bit. And that's where we're going to go into yellows and greens a bit. So start over at the green, and you can change the hue and saturation a little bit, so it totally, depending on the colors you want. So we want it to be just a little bit, just bring it up a little bit, bring the saturation down a little bit, but then bring the brightness back up. So this is going to create an effect. That's a little less. This is going to create an effect for you that really feels like the sun is, it's like changing the position of the sun almost, right? And so we're changing these things to really make the sun feel more powerful, to help illuminate them from the front, and it's less of a blown out picture and just really lights them beautifully. Now, one thing to remember is that when you do these edits and you do change these colors, as you're doing them, they might look really funky, but we have to remember that we're focusing on the end product. So just bear with me, and when you come to the end product, you'll see what I mean. So we changed these a little bit, and obviously we're going to come back, we're going to do some more edits, but that's what we changed for now. Now we're going to go up to temperature a little bit. We want it to be a little bit warm. We want them to feel a little warmer. It was a very warm day. It was a very romantic day. It was their wedding. So we want to really invoke that emotion with this photo. So we're just going to increase the temperature a little bit. Now, if you go really far, obviously it really messes the photo. The warmer the temperature, the higher the number, the more yellow, the lower, the colder, etc. So we just want to bring it up a little bit. Right about here is probably good. Usually around 5,000 to 5,500 on a sunny day is usually really about as high as you're going to want to go. Anything after that is going to look really yellow and really weird. So we don't really want to do that too much. So now let's go back to green a little bit. It's a little too vibrant, a little too bright. It's not really the feel that we're looking for. It's it's not really what you would see if you were there. So we're going to turn this down a little bit. I'm going to turn the saturation down a tad. Then we're going to go up to the yellow bar. Again, the yellow will do a lot of things, and there's a lot of yellow in the trees that are coming in the sun. So you can change the hue to however you want it to be. Technically, if you want to create fall colors, you could do that, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But by all means, play with the colors. Let them, work with them and see how you can make them work to your favor, to your advantage. So now here we are. We're almost done already, and we really just had small minor adjustments. Now let's look at our before and after again and see how we're looking. So just a few adjustments, just a couple of minutes, just by changing highlights, some shadows, a little bit of the temperature. We changed some of the blue in the color grading, some of the green, some of the yellow, some of the orange, and here we are. We already have a photo that just jumps at you. It's beautiful, it really pops out, and it just tells a story of a warm, romantic day. And yeah, that's my tutorial today on Lightroom desktop. Like and follow for more.